Okay, so now that we know some of the basic stitches, especially for horizontal movement, we are going to practice making something that continues. So we are going to start with a chain, right? So the way we do that, remember, we make our slip knot, so cross it over, loop it from the back, pull it through here, and snug it up. Okay, we're going to do several chains here. We're going to do 25 chains here, okay? So you're going to loop it around. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, and 25. Okay, now we are going to go ahead and start with the double crochet. So just like we did in the video where we learned about the double crochet, we are going to skip a couple of stitches here. Now in that video we skipped 2 stitches. Today we are going to skip 3. So we have 1, 2, 3. We're going to start that double crochet in this 4th chain from the hook. So when you're looking at patterns, often it will say double crochet in the 3rd chain from the hook or the 4th chain from the hook. Just depends on the pattern, so make sure you're paying attention to that. So remember, double crochet, we start with a loop over first, tuck it into that chain, pull it through, loop over, pull it through 2, loop over, pull it through 2. Okay, so now we're going to keep going with double crochet through the end of this row. So loop it over, tuck it in. This is really good practice. Pull it up, 2 and 2. One of the nice things about this is that it's a really good way to practice your double crochet, right? And it turns into something nice. So as you're starting to get more comfortable, one of the things that I did when I was learning was I made little rectangles out of crochet because they were easy to do, they did not take very long, and it helped me practice my basic stitches. So one of the nice things about that is that if you're making the rectangles all the same size, then you can ultimately stitch them together into kind of a patchwork quilt blanket if you'd like. So there are some things you can do with it, and there are some organizations that accept rectangles for just that purpose. So you can do some digging online if you want to be philanthropic with your crochet work. Find places that do accept those kinds of things. Then you can make them, practice your crochet, help the world. It's a win-win for everybody. So it's also nice if you are working with bits and pieces of yarn, which many of you may be if you're getting started. So it means that you don't have to go out and buy a giant skein when you aren't really sure how you're going to be using this or how much you're going to be using it. So it's a good way to use up some of that old yarn as well, yarn that's been used for other projects. So we're going to go ahead, get to the end of this row here, and if you're having some trouble practicing this at this speed, go ahead and go back to that double crochet video and follow through with that until you get to the end of the row. Okay, so we're going to keep going here, almost finished. It's also something really nice to do to keep your hands busy while you're watching TV. Or if you're listening to an audiobook, or if there's music that you like to listen to. Just a nice way to kind of de-stress at the end of the day, get your hands working on something, especially if you're used to kind of working on computers or doing things that don't require a lot of creativity. This is a good way to become more creative. Okay, so now we've got our whole row of double crochets. So what we're going to do is turn our work, okay? So that's the first thing to do. Now, to start another row of double crochet, you're going to do 3 chains. Okay, so we're going to go 1, so loop over, pull through, that's 1, loop over, pull through, that's 2, loop over, pull through, that's 3. Now we're going to skip this first stitch because this chain counts as a stitch on its own. So we're skipping this one, we're going to go double crochet into the next one. So loop around, tuck it in, and now when we tuck it in the next row, we're actually going to tuck it through both stitches. So now again, when you're reading patterns, it will generally tell you if there's something different that you should do. It just changes the look, okay? But for our purposes and generally, you're going to stick it through both. So you're going to see there's a hole here underneath, and make sure that you're sticking it under both of those stitches, okay? Loop it over, pull it through, loop it over, pull it through 2, loop it over, pull it through 2, okay? So let's keep going with that. All right, so you're going to loop it over and tuck it underneath both of those loops, remember? So both loops, loop it over, pull it through, loop it over, pull it through 2, loop it over, pull it through 2. Very good. And again, we're going to just loop it over, stick it under both of those loops, pull through, over, pull through 2, over, pull through 2. Excellent. Okay, so you're going to keep going through the end of this row, and then something very important is going to happen. What you want to do is make sure that you have the same number of stitches on both rows. Okay, so let's go ahead together, loop over. We're going to keep going with these double crochets along to the end of the row. And again, if you need to slow down a little bit, that's okay. You can always pause the video and join us when you're ready. Okay, and like I said, there's no race to any of this, but as you get more and more comfortable and confident, you'll go faster. Okay, it's just a natural tendency that happens, just like when you're riding a bike or running. The more you do something, the faster and more efficient you're going to become at doing that activity. All right. So we're going to keep going here. And it's also nice that this is quiet. So if you've got little kiddos at home, this is a nice little quiet activity that you can do while they're playing, or while other things are happening. You can take crochet with you in your bag if you're going on the bus or to a doctor's appointment, or on a plane even. One of the nice things about this too is you don't really need scissors a lot. So, you know, depending on the airline and the times, crochet hooks may or may not be acceptable to bring on an airplane. But for the most part, you know, they're safe. So as you see, my yarn here is a little bit tangled, and that sometimes happens with yarn, right? So again, one of the things about crochet is that you can kind of stop wherever, make sure that you've got enough of a tail there at the end, and then come back to your work. Okay, so we're coming up on the end of our row here, our last few stitches. And okay, so once we get to the, okay, so this is our penultimate stitch. So the one almost at the end, that one's a normal one. Okay, when you get to your last stitch, it's going to be in that first chain. Okay, so instead of putting it through a stitch itself, you're going to be putting it through a chain. So as you see the chain here, you see those 2 loops, okay? You're going to put it under those 2 loops. Now this one always gives me a little bit of trouble. It's just a thing. So I always have to kind of work hard with my thumb and middle finger to get my crochet hook through both of those loops. So see how it's through both of those loops there? Then you're going to loop around just like you did before. Oops, you know what I forgot to do? I forgot that loop over at the beginning, okay? So you loop over at the beginning, then you do that. So you take it through one of those loops, you take it through the second loop, there we go. Now you're going to loop over, pull it through, just like you would for a regular stitch, and then keep going with that double crochet. Okay, so that's the one that often gets missed, and that's what's going to throw off the length of your rows. So let's count our stitches. Okay, so we have 1, 1, 2, 2, 3, 3, 4, 4, 5, 5, 6, 6, 7, 7, 8, 8, 9, 9, 10, 10, 11, 11, 12, 12, 13, 13, 14, 14, 15, 15, 16, 16, 17, 17, 18, 18, 19, 19, 20, 20, 21, 21, 22, 22, 23, 23. So periodically you're going to want to make sure and check that. As you get more comfortable and confident, you'll probably be okay. Now, this is where you're going to start seeing if your tension is not consistent. If it is consistent, you're going to see that your rows are about the same length, your stitches are about the same size, and everything is about the same height. If you're seeing that that's not the case, which may be the case for you if you're just starting out, that's okay. Practice will fix it, okay? So try not to be too hard on yourself, and then you'll just keep going. So what you'll do is the same thing we did to start the last row. So we flip it around. You're going to do 3 chains, 1, 2, 3, loop over, skip that first stitch, and tuck it into the second one. We'll start with your double crochet on this row, and you'll just keep going all the way across. So you can turn this into a rectangle, you can turn it into a scarf, whatever you'd like to turn it into. You can also just take it out again and start over when you're all done so that you have something to do and work on and practice. All right, so that is how you do that. And you have a PDF that's included of a toddler size scarf that's about this width. So you can practice what we've done here. It's very basic, just double crochets, and you can practice that and practice following a pattern as well. So happy crafting. This is your rectangle, and in the next section we're going to talk about how to make a 3-dimensional object as well. All right, happy crafting. Talk to you soon.